We're excited to have everyone join us. Hello on the live stream, those who are out there. And yeah, we're excited to worship with you guys today. Yeah, we just want to give praise to God and just bring him praise, worship, rock out, have fun. We're in our PJs, so let loose. You already did. You already let loose. You wore your PJs. All right, so we're going to get going. I am chosen, I am free, I am living for eternity. Free now, forever, you pick me up, turn me around, you set my feet on the solid ground. Free now, forever, nothing's gonna hold me back, and nothing's gonna hold me back, nothing's gonna hold me back. Nothing's gonna hold me back. Sing, my chains fell off. My chains fell off, my heart was free. I'm alive to live for you. I'm alive to live for you. Amazing love, how can it be? You gave everything for me. You gave everything for me, everything. You washed my sin and shame away. The slate is clean, a brand new day. Free now, forever. Now boldly I approach your throne to claim this crown, to Christ my own. Yours now, forever, yeah, yeah, yeah. And nothing's gonna hold me back. Nothing's gonna hold me back. Nothing's gonna hold me back. My chains fell off, my heart was free. I'm alive to live for you. I'm alive to live for you. Amazing love, how can it be? You gave everything for me. You gave everything for me. And I'm free to live, I'm free to give, I'm free to be, I'm free to love you, free to live, I'm free to give, I'm free to be, I'm free to love you, free to live, I'm free to give, I'm free to be, I'm free to love you, Lord. My chains fell off, my heart was free. I'm alive to live for you. I'm alive to live for you. Amazing love, how can it be? You gave everything for me. You gave everything for me. My chains fell off, my heart was free. I'm alive to live for you. I'm alive to live for you. Amazing love, how can it be? You gave everything for me. You gave everything for me. You gave everything for me. You gave everything for me.
days when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. When I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire, standing next to me. There was another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding of how I've been set free, there is a cross that bears the burden where another died for me. There is another in the fire. All my dead left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. And should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning, either way I won't bow to the things of this world. And I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding what power set me free, there is a grave that holds nobody. Now the power lives in me. There is another in the fire. Another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh, and I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to Him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between wears thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. And nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. There's no other name, sing it out. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone.
Do you know that, church?
Yes, I know I will never be alone.
Never.
Be another in the fire, standing next to me. Be another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. And I can see, yes, I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to Him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between wears thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. And nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between. There'll be another be another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. Count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be.
Jesus, you are so good. You are so good. You are so good. Your presence is our peace. Your presence is our power. You not only give us hope, Lord, you are our living hope.
How great the chasm that lay between us, how high the mountain I could not climb,
a fact that our God does not just take away our shame? How about he gives us glory for it? How about he does not just make dead bones live? He turns bones into armies. How about he turns graves into gardens? I searched the world, but it couldn't fail me. Man's empty praise and treasures of fate are never enough. But then you came along and put me back together. Now every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. And I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. There's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. 'Cause there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. Let's sing that again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. We're gonna sing about why. You already know. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. 'Cause graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Jesus.
Filled with action, filled with activity, filled with highlights. And you think that the gospel writers would just highlight the most critical moments in this final week story. And what makes that all the more interesting is the story that we're highlighting today is one of those stories that doesn't quite seem to fit. Three of the gospel writers, during this final week of Jesus' ministry, chose to write about Jesus having dinner. Like, what is that about? Like, are you gonna add a little menu here too and tell us what Jesus ate? That would actually really be interesting. Like, bread and fish, is that what you do? But that is the event that takes place here, right? A week, like less than a week before the crucifixion, during this last week of ministry, all of the things that are happening here need to happen during this time. And these gospel writers write about Jesus and his friends and his disciples having dinner. It's a story that doesn't seem to fit the moment or the climactic power of the week. So why tell it? So you know what's really interesting is if you're a detective, it's always the clues that don't quite fit that make you suspect that there's more going on than just the crime at face value. If you're a doctor, it's when the symptoms don't fit that make you suspect something else is going on in addition to the diagnosis you've already made. If you're an accountant, it's always that odd spending that doesn't quite seem to fit that causes flags to go up and make you start wondering, man, is there something going on that I don't know about with this company? Does that make sense? In the same way, in the scriptures, as Christians, it's the stories in the Bible that just don't quite seem to fit that should cause Christians to sit up and take notice. It should cause Christians to wonder, God, why would you even consider including this story at all? And in this case specifically, God, why would you spend precious white space in the final week of Jesus' ministry, the climax of this movement here, to tell this story about a dinner? And that's where we're going to begin. And we'll start in the Gospel of John. So John chapter 12 is where we'll begin. John chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. So 6 days before the Passover celebration began, Jesus arrived in Bethany, the home of Lazarus, or Lazarus,
the man he had raised from the dead. A dinner was prepared in Jesus' honor. Martha served, and Lazarus was among those who ate with him. Then Mary took a 12-ounce jar of expensive perfume made from the essence of nard and anointed Jesus' feet with it, wiping his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the fragrance. So they're hanging out at Simon's house, and I don't know, maybe they wear pajamas like we're wearing today, right? Pajama day. And they're hanging out, having dinner, having some fellowship. Again, it's the final week leading up to the crucifixion of Jesus. And in context, there's been a lot that is going on. This is like a breather moment. Lazarus has been raised from the dead. And not just has Lazarus been raised from the dead, but there were crowds that saw this happen. Bethany, the home of Mary, Lazarus, and Martha, is just like a Sabbath day walk, so a short walk from Jerusalem. And so there are crowds that have witnessed this. There's chaos going in Jerusalem. Jesus has made his entry into the city. There is drama everywhere. Martha, here in this home, they're taking a breather. Martha is serving the food as she does. And Jesus is having dinner with his closest friends. And that is when she walks in. John identifies her as Mary, but Mark, in the Gospel of Mark, he doesn't necessarily do so. Mark chapter 14, verse 3. Meanwhile, Jesus was in Bethany at the home of Simon, a man who had previously had leprosy. While he was eating, a woman came in with a beautiful alabaster jar of expensive perfume made from the essence of nard. She broke open the jar and poured the perfume over his head. It's a detail. Details are a bit important. So John says that they're in the home of Lazarus. Mark says they're at the home of Simon the leper. To reconcile these accounts, there are a number of scholars that say, Simon was likely Lazarus, Mary and Martha's father. And so it is his home. So Mark is identifying where they're having dinner by the owner of the house. And John is identifying the home by who invited Jesus and his disciples. So to give you an idea, it'd be like if Danielle, our daughter, decided to invite some friends over for dinner. And they're like, yeah, we're going to dinner over at Frank and Gisella's house. Or, yeah, we're going over to dinner at Danielle's house. It's the same thing, same place. Do you understand the distinction? So that is what is happening here. The point to note is that it's not just some strange woman. This is Mary that is approaching Jesus. And before we continue in the story, I want to take a moment to highlight who Mary has been in the scriptures. Mary actually shows up 3 times in the Bible. The first time is in Luke chapter 10, and in this context, they were, again, hosting Jesus and his disciples, and Martha has been running around, caring for, serving, preparing the food, and she's overwrought, right? She's exasperated. She's been working hard. And she sees her sister Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus. And so she complains to Jesus and says, Jesus, will you please tell my sister to get up and come help me? And what is Jesus' response? He's like, Martha, Martha, you're worried about so many things. But Mary, she has chosen the best thing, and it will not be taken from her, right? And so from the very beginning, we're introduced to Mary, a woman who is sitting at the feet of Jesus, worshiping God, and she has put her faith in him. The second time Mary shows up in the scriptures, in the Bible, in the gospel stories, is when Jesus rose Lazarus from the dead. Richard just shared on that just a couple of weeks ago. And again, she comes and cries out and causes Jesus himself to weep. And then this is, a few days later, her final appearance. Jesus and his disciples, again, are spending their time at Simon's house, at Lazarus' house. They're eating, they're sharing stories, they're laughing together, they're enjoying each other's company and enjoying sweet fellowship together. And then in she comes, interrupting this community, interrupting their meal, disrupting their fellowship in a somewhat inappropriate way, right? These are where the men are gathered, and that's where they're eating and they're hanging out. And at this time, anyway, having a lone woman come in, a single woman no less, is just kind of disruptive and somewhat inappropriate. So she comes in, she interrupts them, and then not only does she interrupt them, but she approaches Jesus with this beautiful alabaster jar of perfume. A jar of perfume worth, as we'll see in a minute, a year's salary. Can you imagine that? Like, I'm a guy, I don't use perfume. Like, I barely use cologne, right? I barely use deodorant. So let's kind of get honest here. Like, so here she is coming in with, is that TMI? That was probably TMI. So, yeah. So anyway, she comes in with this jar of perfume that's worth a year's salary. Do you know what a year's salary is? The average salary in the United States, or the average salary over the course of a year, is $98,000. That's insane. Like, for those of you who know the difference between average and median, we'll correct that. So the median salary, yeah, I know, we're thinking, wait, what? We're below average here. So I know, in so many ways. So anyway, the median salary, for those of you who know the difference, good job. So the median salary is $70,000. Either way, this is an expensive bottle of perfume. It was likely a gift given to her. It was likely given to her to help secure her future, and probably given to her to use sparingly for special occasions, and maybe even to be saved for her future wedding, right? So that is this alabaster jar. And so either way, again, it's a very expensive jar of perfume, and this is Mary. And so what does Mary do with this very expensive jar of perfume? Well, as we've seen from Mary, in every instance that she is shown in the scriptures, Mary has proven herself to be a devoted believer and an adoring worshiper. She loves Jesus. Maybe even more than that, she believes in him. And so she knows that despite the laughter, despite the fun, despite the fellowship, despite the eating of the meal, there is something bigger going on. Something bigger that maybe only she and Jesus himself know is happening at the backdrop. She might not know the specifics, but she has some idea, right? Like, Jesus has been talking about his death for a while now. He has talked about being buried and rising from the dead. And maybe his disciples thought he was being, oh, that's Jesus, being allegorical again. We have no idea what this means, and none of us want to ask him to explain, right? But Mary gets it. Something else is going on. And so she does, in this moment, what comes very naturally to her. In this pivotal moment, Mary worships. She breaks, as it says in Mark, this bottle of perfume, and she pours it over Jesus' head. This very expensive perfume poured over his feet, wipes his feet with her hair. Right? This is what Mark and John tells us that she does. And so here is this very expensive $100,000 bottle of perfume, broken and poured generously over Jesus' body, over his clothes, over his feet, and dripping onto the ground. It is an act that doesn't make sense to anyone in the room except Mary and Jesus. To them, what Mary has done is baffling, an utter mystery, which explains why they respond the way they do. Mark chapter 14, verse 4. Some of those at the table were indignant. Indignant means like a bit angry. They were so outraged. Why waste such expensive perfume, they asked. It could have been sold for a year's wages and the money given to the poor. So they scolded her harshly. So for a number of years now, our family and our church have supported Seamark Ranch. For those of you who don't know what Seamark Ranch is a place privately funded that hosts and cares for teenagers that have been abandoned by their parents, or parents who no longer want to deal with their children. And so CMARC is a place of extended respite care. That's what they provide, right? For a while, for an extended period of time, not like a day or two, but like months, we will house your child here. And so it's a place of safety. There are 2 boys' homes, 2 girls' homes, and we're very familiar with them because my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, and her husband are house parents for one of the boys' homes. And we have some good friends, Brian and Sarah Wazinski, and Brian is the chief operations officer at CMARC now, and he and his wife used to be house parents of another boys' home. And so we have this really strong relationship with them. They used to be a part of Awaken Church until they moved out to their full-time to be serving at CMARC. So we have this really strong relationship with CMARC Ranch, and we've been a part of a number of their fundraisers. And so it was during one of these fundraisers that they decided to, so they were raising funds. Our church was coming alongside to support them. And one of our children came up and pretty excited, a bit hesitant, and shared that they decided that they also personally wanted to give CMARC a gift, a financial gift, and they'd end up giving $1,000. And my reaction was, are you kidding me? Like, I was like, are you crazy? Like, first of all, where did you even get $1,000? Like, that's a mystery to me. And if you had $1,000, you should be putting it to something practical, like your college fund, right? That is what's practical. And I'm kind of ashamed. I'm not exactly proud to admit that that was my first reaction, right? I missed it. I missed her love. I missed her generosity. She had approached me expecting that her dad would be really proud of her, and instead she got outrage and indignation. Because I chose to be practical and because I chose practical, I missed love and generosity. And I share that with you because I read this passage, and I know a lot of times we read this and we get judgy about these disciples. Like, how could they respond in this way to Mary's obvious act of love and worship? And I'm saying, yeah, we're reading that knowing how the rest of the story plays out, right? And when you know how the rest of the story plays out, it's like, oh yeah, what Mary did makes a ton of sense, and the disciples were stupid, right? But in the moment, like, I get it, because I've been there. Like, you see something this extravagant an act of love, and for those of us who live in a very practical world and tend to be practically minded, it's like, that doesn't make any sense, and it's not supposed to. And the disciples reacted in the way that many of us probably would when we see extravagance in our minds wasted. Her actions were over the top. They were outrageous. They saw expensive perfume, again, worth about $100,000 a year's salary, slowly rolling down Jesus' cheeks, embedded in his clothes, dripping and pooling onto the floor. And this is perfume you can't get back. She broke the bottle. Like, it's out there. There's no scooping it back in. There's no putting it back. There's no saving it. Mary has given her all to Jesus in this extravagant act. And their response is, do you know what could have been done? What else could have been done with that money? $100,000. Do you know how many poor people that would feed? Like, even today, that would feed a lot of poor people. That's how the disciples respond. And Mary, like, this extravagant act, can you imagine the risk that she was taking? Like, this had never been done before. Like, we look back sometimes and like, oh, we know what worship looks like because the Bible teaches us what worship looks like. Church teaches us what worship looks like. You know, these are the things that we do. There's no precedent for this. Mary doesn't even know exactly what's going to happen. Jesus has given hints, but he hasn't laid out a timeline. He hasn't said, hey, guys, here's the plan, right? And I've just got a few days left before I go to the cross. Like, that's not what is happening here. And so this perfume that was gifted to her, designed to be saved for a very special occasion, a beautiful occasion, maybe even reserved for her marriage, has now been spent. It's kind of like the song that we started with this morning, right? Holding nothing back. That was Mary's posture. And so in the midst, or in the face of this harsh criticism, what does Mary do? She stays quiet. She doesn't respond. She doesn't defend herself. She doesn't intend to. She remains quiet in the face of this criticism, unafraid, maybe afraid, I don't know, but hoping, I would imagine, that even if no one else in the room understands what she has done, that Jesus would. That Jesus would know what she has done, even if no one else can. And he does. Verses 6 through 8. But Jesus replied, "Leave her alone. Why criticize her for doing such a good thing to me? You will always have the poor among you, and you can help them whenever you want to, but you will not always have me. She has done what she could and has anointed my body for burial ahead of time." This is Jesus' remarkable response. Unlike the disciples, Jesus doesn't see wasted perfume. He doesn't see wasted money. He doesn't see missed opportunities. Instead, he responds by saying, guys, there will always be other opportunities. There will always be other poor people to help. There will always be good causes. There will always be opportunities to show your generosity. But, and this is what I don't want you to miss, there was also an opportunity right now. And this woman with the alabaster jar is the only one who has seen it. She's the only one who has recognized that sometimes we can miss giving our best in the moment because we think we should save it for a better time. And she did not miss the moment. Right now, there is an opportunity to worship. Right now, there's an opportunity to anoint. Right now, there's an opportunity to love Jesus. And Mary is the only one in the room that has not squandered it. She has made the most of the moment. She has given extravagantly the best that she has. And for that, Jesus defends her. She is a rare woman. For the vast majority of us, let's be honest, right? We hold back. We rarely give the best that we have. We rarely give all, right? We're always holding something back. And usually one of the reasons why we do so is because we have this fear. What if I give my best and it's rejected? What if I give my best and there was a better opportunity to give my best to, and I just wasted my shot, right? What if I give my best? On and on and on. And I'm just like, that's me. I totally get it. Like, I am always balanced. Not with, like, I am never, not never, that's extreme. I'm almost never reckless, right? I am not with my words, not with my actions. In fact, I am so much this way that I live my entire life feeling restrained. And I have this constant fear that I'm going to say the wrong thing or I'm going to do the wrong thing. And in saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing, someone is going to get hurt because of me. Because of my lack of self-control. And so with that result being, I'm always in some way, shape, or form holding something back. My wife, on the other hand, is much more unrestrained, right? And I think it's beautiful. She laughs easily. She worships freely. She expresses herself without worrying about how everyone else is going to interpret what she does. And it's really interesting because in the early days of her marriage, like, I remember I was constantly trying to restrain her. Like, sweetheart, that's not appropriate. You shouldn't do that. Like, I was always trying to hold her back. And now I look back and I was like, I was so stupid. Like, today I admire her. Like, she is my Mary. And I'm sharing this with you all. I know, I didn't mean to get sappy. I'm just like, I'm sharing this with you all because I want you to understand something, right? There's something very important here in this story, entangled in this story, that I don't want you to miss. A lesson that I think Jesus is teaching us through Mary's example that I don't want us to gloss over, right? Mary lived her life not making the wrong assumption that many of us make all the time. And that wrong assumption is there will always be another chance. There will always be another opportunity. And that's how we live, right? And because we live this way, we hold back. We hold back, and sometimes we don't tell someone we love that we love them because it's like, oh, well, I miss it, but there's another chance for me to be able to tell them someday, maybe tomorrow, right? We choose not to sacrifice for someone we love today because, well, maybe sacrificing will be easier or more convenient tomorrow, as if that ever happens, right? We choose to pass on doing the right thing today because, well, maybe it'll be better or easier for me to do the right thing tomorrow, right? But that is not how this woman with the alabaster jar thought. Mary wasn't saving her best for the next opportunity that might or might not come in hopes that maybe it will be the better one. Mary realized that giving your best to Jesus is never wasted and always a good idea. That has been her posture every time she has been with Jesus. It hasn't always been this extravagant, this over the top. And that's not what it means to give your all, is to always be extravagant or over the top, but there is a place for that. And Mary has chosen this one to be her place. And so because of that, she interjects herself in the story, in the fellowship. She risks embarrassing herself by coming and entering into this room. She suffers the risk of rejection by pouring this perfume over Jesus' head, not knowing how he's going to react. He could very well have been like, what are you doing? What is this mess you've made, Mary, right? She suffers the risk of rejection, and she accepts the risk of surrender, accepts the risk of maybe if I do this, what if Jesus is not the right person for me to give my treasure to, right? She runs all of that risk, and she gives unrestrained love to Jesus. And for that, Jesus declares this blessing upon her. Verse 9, I tell you the truth. Wherever the good news is preached throughout the world, this woman's deed will be remembered and discussed. Like, if we need any more encouragement to make the most of our opportunities to give our all and to give our best to Jesus, this should be it, right? Jesus commends her. Not only does Jesus say she has done the right thing, but tells her and everyone else in the room that she is so right that what she has done will be inscribed and never forgotten. I love how the New Living Translation shares this verse, right? Wherever the good news is preached throughout the world, Mary will be remembered, and what she has done will be talked about. Well, for Jesus, that certainly came true. Her encounter with Jesus, as weird and as mismatched as the story is in this final week of Jesus' ministry, God made sure that it is in there because he promised, right? It will always be remembered and discussed. So it's here, recorded forever in the Bible, read by billions of people throughout history, talked about and discussed, and not forgotten. But we're not yet done. There's one more story here at Simon's house that we need to talk about before we leave. And it's a story of what happens after Mary anoints Jesus. The next verse is Mark 14, verses 10 through 11. Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, went to the leading priests to arrange to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted when they heard why he had come, and they promised to give him money, so he began looking for an opportunity to betray Jesus. What a contrast in stories. Both Matthew and Mark shares this is what happens right after. Judas goes out, and he plans to betray them. And it's tough. I know that empathizing with Judas is probably not the most popular posture to take, but I always try to do so, right? And I hope you do as well. So here's Judas. He has been with Jesus from the early days of his ministry. And I think just here, seeing Mary anointing Jesus, he's finally had enough. Like, I've been with you, Jesus. I've supported you. I've believed in you. I've trusted you. But Jesus, you're now going too far. Like, you're not just a rabbi now. You're coming in and announcing yourself as Messiah. You're announcing yourself as king. You accepted the type of worship that only kings should accept, and that's not who I believe you are. And so what has he done? He has gone back to the leaders he's trusted as a Jew his entire life. Like, all of these leaders that I've trusted and followed my entire life, surely they can't be wrong. It must be Jesus who's wrong. And so he has chosen to trust these Jewish leaders rather than put his trust in Jesus. And for that, Judas becomes betrayer. I share that story because you know what the irony is? Judas's story will also be remembered wherever the gospel goes. Isn't that interesting? Jesus doesn't commend it, but it happens. So let's bring this home, brothers and sisters. So you and I, we're not going to find ourselves in the Bible. Unless you do like I do and you write your name in it, right? So, I mean, that's the only way I get in the Bible. So otherwise, we're not going to find ourselves in the Bible. Billions and billions of people throughout history are not going to talk about you or I. But that doesn't mean that what we do and the choices we make will go unseen. Do you understand the distinction? Our choices, our decisions, our worship, like billions may not see it, but one surely does. Jesus sees them, right? Jesus knows all the choices that we're going to make. He knows all of the times when we choose worship and we choose love versus all those times that we choose doubt and we choose disregard. Jesus also knows all the times where we are holding back and all the times that we have chosen to give him our best. And he knows. Jesus knows not only what we're offering him, but Jesus also knows the effect of what we're going to do as well. We don't. Do you understand? When we're facing Mary's story and we're in this place of saying, how do we follow that example? What are we supposed to do with a story like this? What are we supposed to do with this idea of not holding back and giving our best to Jesus? And that giving our best to Jesus will never be a bad choice. What do we do for that? I want to be clear, giving our best to Jesus doesn't always look like what Mary did, right? It's not always the over-the-top, extravagant, outrageous expression of love. Most often, giving our best is quiet, deliberate, and it is an offering that really only Jesus needs to see and know. But we know, and he knows. Does that make sense? But the point I want to make here is that Jesus sees, Jesus knows, even if billions will not. And not only does he know what you're doing and when you're holding back, but he knows the effect of it. And we do not. And what that means is we don't know oftentimes, maybe never, right? We don't know what holding back costs. And we don't know the effect of giving our best and how it might make a difference. And so, given the uncertainty, we give our best to Jesus because nothing offered to him will be in vain, and he is always worthy of our best. And if that lesson needs to be imprinted all the more, then I think we just fast forward just a few days. So a few days after this night at Simon's house, Jesus is arrested. Just a few days separating fellowship with friends and a trial in front of Pontius Pilate. The result of this trial is that Jesus is condemned to death and forced to carry his cross to the hill of the skull at Golgotha. His clothes are stripped from him, and he is crucified on that hill. And on that cross, I know we can't even imagine, right? But on that cross, in those moments of incredible torment, not just physical, he has been spiritually separated from his Father, who he has spent his entire existence with. Emotionally, he has been betrayed by his closest friends. And physically, he has been broken, right? Beaten, tortured. And in those moments, in those hours of pain, in the midst of all the sweat, the blood, the tears, and decay, on that cross, there is still this faint scent of perfume, of pure nard that is still entangled in his hair, lingering in his beard, embedded in his skin. A pure and refreshing scent that reminds him that all is not lost, his sacrifice has not been in vain, and yes, he has been loved. The final breath Jesus takes on this earth prior to his resurrection will be taken with perfume in his nose. A scent that reminds him, a young woman's love and worship that will be forever remembered and forever treasured. Mary did not know in the moment she gave her best to Jesus what it would mean to him. But we now do, right? We also know that the story of Jesus does not end at the cross. We know Jesus rises from the dead. We know that someday Jesus will return at the head of armies to bring his faithful followers home. And that's us, if we put our faith in him, right? We will spend eternity with Jesus, and he will someday return and claim us and take us home. And in that eternity, I'm telling you now, some stories that we talk about and remember today will be forgotten, like the story of Judas and his betrayal. And some stories will continue to resonate throughout eternity, like Mary's story, her anointing of Jesus. That will be remembered forever. Do you see the distinction? I think that's an important lesson for us as well, right? What stories will be told that we've forgotten, and which ones will be resounding throughout eternity? Not bad from a story that we just didn't seem to find or didn't seem to fit. Let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for this morning, for this time, for the opportunity for us to work through the story that just didn't match up with all the other stories during this final week of Jesus' ministry. And from that story, to be able to realize there is something eternal and profound in what Mary did in that moment that should be proclaimed, and as a matter of fact, you promised would not be forgotten. And Lord, in light of that story, God, to be able to trust that maybe, just maybe, our acts of worship and giving you our best won't be forgotten either. Maybe they won't be celebrated or discussed or talked about by billions, but you will not forget. And Lord, I do pray. I come before you, I pray for my brothers and sisters, and here's what I pray for, Lord. I pray that our offerings to you on a day-by-day basis, on a moment-by-moment basis, will always be our best, that we would not ever cheat you of anything less than our full worship and our full commitment, that our faith in you will be pure and unstained, and that we would come before you as innocently and as unrestrained as Mary does in this story, as she has shown that she has done throughout her life and encounters with you. Man, that is the type of faith and relationship that I aspire to. I don't always get it, Lord. Like, honestly, restraint is just like part of the deal in this life, I think, that we're afraid to go beyond that. And I just pray that you would lift that fear from our people, and you'd allow us to come and experience the reality of how overjoyed you will be and how delighted will be your response to us should we offer ourselves to you this way. And I pray that we would. We love you, Lord. You are our life, our hope, our salvation, and there is none other who is worthy of it, of our praise, of our lives. And so we give it to you. Thank you for this morning. We thank you for this time. We thank you for the gift of your Son. It's in his name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Frank. Thank you, Frank. I'm I'm Katie, and I have just a few announcements for you guys. Before I get to those, though, I just have to repeat something that Frank shared because it really struck me, and I feel like it's going to stick with me this week. He said, choosing practicality over love and generosity. That was the point. And then what he said was, extravagant love does not make sense, but it's not supposed to. And I feel like that really hit me. Mary recognized the moment, and she went for it. And how convicting is it that I have to admit that's not my response usually. I kind of side with Frank, that restraint, that comfort, that not living on the edge. That's kind of where I like to live. And so it was really encouraging to hear this story from that perspective, but also really challenging. So I hope it sticks with you guys too this week, that as you go about your week, when you have those moments to live extravagantly and love the Lord extravagantly, go ahead and do it. It's not supposed to look normal, and let's not be normal, right? let's do that. All right, I have just a few announcements this morning. First of all, welcome. If you're visiting Awaken, we're really excited to have you. If it's your first time or you're just visiting, you've just been visiting for a while, we'd love to connect with you. We have a QR code that you can scan, fill out some information about yourself so we can get to know you a little better. We also have these Connect cards on the back table, and you can tear off the little part on the bottom and stick it in our giving box, and we would love to get to know you a little bit more. Also, if you're visiting, we don't wear PJs every Sunday. I know, sometimes we like to do things a little differently, and twice a year, whenever there's a time change at Awaken, we always wear our PJs. Some of us do, not all of us. Wear our PJs just for something fun. My kids look forward to it. They count the weeks until the time change so that they can wear their PJs to church, which is really fun. So welcome if you're here today. Also, here at Awaken, we practice our giving differently. We don't pass a bucket, we don't do a special song and special time of prayer, but we just simply ask you to give. And you can give online, you can give in person in the giving box on the back wall. And we're just really excited about what God's doing here at Awaken, through the ministries at Awaken, in our church, in our city, and how he's using those funds to reach people for the gospel. And we're excited about that. So thank you for giving generously, and don't forget to do that today. Next Saturday, on March 18th, is our Women's Fight Club event. It is our, self-defense course. It was going to be in February. It had to be rescheduled. It is finally here. So if you've already registered for that, you're good to go. If you haven't registered, go ahead and do it. We have just a couple of spots left. It'll be next Saturday morning here at the church at 10 a.m. And if you did register for the February event and you can't make it to this one, let Lainey know, because we want to make sure you get your registration fee back on that. The other announcement I have today is that coming up on March 26th, Sunday, March 26th, we will have our Partnership 1 class. And it's right after service. Lunch will be included. And this is a time that if you've been coming to Awaken and you want to know more details, you want to know a little bit more about Awaken's core values, how we practice ministry here, and how you can be part of the family here at Awaken, we want you to come to this lunch, come to this meeting, and get the information you need and figure out how you can be part of the family and get plugged in here. That's all I have for today. The last thing I want to say is that we always offer our prayer corner. If there's something in your heart that you need prayer for, please come after service. Some of our leaders and pastors will be here, and you can have someone to talk to and get prayed over, because prayer works, you guys. We know that, don't we? Awesome. You guys have a great afternoon. We'll see you later.